Revealed, how a humble girl's life-changing act saved a lost elderly man in the rain and astounded her small town. Emily stood at the bus stop, soaked to her bones, clutching her flimsy umbrella as the relentless storm pounded down. Just minutes earlier, she had clocked out from a grueling shift at the local diner, her mind spinning with thoughts of her mother working another late night. The rain fell like a curtain of sorrow, mirroring the weight heavy in her chest. But little did she know, this evening was about to alter the course of her life and her community forever. As she prepared to dash home, Emily spotted an elderly man wandering aimlessly at the corner, lost in the haze of the downpour. He seemed out of place, a statue of fragility surrounded by chaos. With no second thoughts, she rushed toward him. "Excuse me, sir. Are you okay?" she shouted above the thunder, her heart pounding. He looked up with weathered eyes filled with confusion. I can't find my way," he stammered. Without hesitation, Emily shared her umbrella, feeling the spark of warmth ignite between them amidst the cold rain. "Let us get you home," she said, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. The old man's name was Mr. Thompson, a retired war veteran who had once known bravery and brotherhood. They trekked through the pouring rain, sharing stories, a beautiful tapestry of past glories and quiet sorrows unfolded with every step. With each tale he told, Emily felt a connection bloom, as if they were two stars colliding in the vast night sky. His voice was gravelly but poignant, recounting sacrifices made, friends lost, and the echoing loneliness that often followed. "You know, kid, some folks don't see us seniors as more than just old baggage," he admitted, a mist of sadness in his eyes. "But we still have stories worth sharing, worth listening to." Just then, a crack of lightning illuminated the night. Emily felt a tightness in her chest. This small town was caught in an invisible struggle. Many of her neighbors dismissed the value of their elderly, ironically overlooking their contributions. She thought of her mother, too worn down by work to appreciate the wisdom of her own grandmother. An urge to bridge this gap surged within her, a fierce determination she couldn't shake. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let us continue." Emily suggested they gather the neighborhood to celebrate the lives of the older folks like Mr. Thompson. As her idea began to take shape, heartfelt hope coursed through her veins. But doubt soon knocked at the door of her mind. Would her neighbors see the value in the wisdom of their elders, or would they cling to their divides? As they reached Mr. Thompson's home, she paused at the sight of his weary but grateful smile. Just then, a surge of optimism flooded her spirit. The storm that raged outside was a reminder of the battles fought in every corner of this town. The warmth of connection could change everything, but could she inspire them to act? With a flutter of determination, Emily knew the storm would pass, but the battle for connection had just begun. The sun peeked through the dark clouds the next day, leaving behind puddles that sparkled like little diamonds on the roads. Emily stood on her porch, heart racing as she clutched her notebook filled with ideas. She had spent the night drafting plans for the gathering, brainstorming ways to involve the community. This was more than just a gathering, it was the perfect chance to mend the invisible rift that existed between the young and the old. Bracing herself, she knocked on the first door. Mrs. Baker, the sweet lady from down the street who had lived in the town for decades. As the creaky door opened, Emily felt a flutter of anxiety. Would Mrs. Baker's response encourage her, or send her hopes crashing down? "Emily, dear. What a lovely surprise!" Mrs. Baker exclaimed, her face lighting up like a warm fire. Come in, come in." Emily stepped inside, inhaling the familiar smell of fresh cookies. "Thank you. I wanted to talk to you about something important." She hesitated, unsure how to approach it. "I think we should hold a gathering to celebrate our elders, like Mr. Thompson. To share stories and connect." Mrs. Baker's eyebrows raised in surprise. "What a beautiful idea. It's been too long since we've honored our elders. The warmth in her voice filled Emily with relief. As news spread, more neighbors began to show their support. Some offered to bake, others volunteered to set up. Emily never imagined the spark she ignited would grow into such a bright flame. But with every positive response, another tiny seed of doubt would plant itself in her mind. What if it was just a fleeting moment, and no one showed up when the day arrived? With preparations underway, Emily decided to pay Mr. Thompson another visit. When she arrived, his eyes twinkled with recognition. "You again, kid? I need your help, Mr. Thompson," she said, her heart thumping. "I want to gather everyone and celebrate the lives of the elders in our community. Will you help me share your story?" He paused for a moment, a shadow flickering across his face before it brightened again. "You remind me of a younger me. Always ready to take on the world." They talked for hours, trading ideas about stories Mr. Thompson could share, how to entice others to join. Emily could see the fire in his eyes reignite, and in that moment, she felt the undeniable ripple of connection forming. As she walked home, Emily found herself smiling, the storm inside her beginning to subside. But in the back of her mind, an unsettling question lingered. Would the community embrace their wisdom, or were they too set in their ways? The following week arrived, and Emily stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her hair nervously. Today was the day. She caught a glimpse of herself, a mix of determination and doubt mirrored back. Taking a deep breath, she pulled on her jacket. "It's time," she whispered, feeling a surge of courage. As she headed outside, a crowd was forming in the park, and Emily's heart leaped. But how would they respond to Mr. Thompson's stories? Would they listen? With every step, an electric energy filled the air. Eyebrows raised, chatter bubbled. All eyes turned to her as she stepped up to the makeshift podium, the weight of anticipation pressing down on her. The moment had arrived. Would they open their hearts, or would indifference linger like an unwelcome guest? Emily took a deep breath, her pulse pounding in her ears like a distant drum. The crowd spread out before her, a tapestry of faces, some curious, some skeptical. She cleared her throat, feeling the sweat gather at her palms. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice trembling slightly at first. "Today, we celebrate not just the stories of our elders, but the legacy they carry within our community." As she spoke, she glanced at Mr. Thompson, seated in the front row, an encouraging smile on his face. That look strengthened her resolve. Not just for him, but for everyone who had their own tales to tell, the laughter, the sorrows, the lessons learned. Suddenly, a voice cut through the murmurs. What stories do they really have that matter? It was Jake, a teenager from the neighborhood, arms crossed defiantly. A few heads nodded in agreement, each hang-up echoing in the tension of the air. Emily felt her heart sink for a moment, but she quickly regained her grip. The stories of our elders are the threads that weave our community together. They are stories of heartache, of triumph, of love and history. Each one of you is part of this fabric. She gestured toward Mrs. Baker, who raised her hand gently, her apron figure exuding warmth. "I remember the first dance I ever attended," Mrs. Baker began, her voice soft yet strong. The crowd turned their focus to her, captivated. "It was during the summer of '56. I was scared to death, but I met my husband there that night." Smiles spread across the faces around her. The room transformed, the ice beginning to crack. "See?" Emily said, standing a little taller. "Every story has the potential to change someone's life. Just like that." More voices joined in, each story building a bridge across the generational divide. Laughter erupted at tales of youthful mistakes, and tears flowed at stories of love and loss, the connection deepening with every shared memory. Then, it was Mr. Thompson's turn. He rose slowly, supported by his cane, but there was a fire in his eyes as he began. "I fought in a war that many have forgotten. But it taught me about courage and sacrifice." His voice trembled, not from fear but from the intensity of reliving those moments. The crowd listened, spellbound. Emily watched as Jake's expression shifted from disbelief to contemplation. He seemed caught in the web of history being spun in front of him, a seed of understanding blooming in his eyes. As the gathering went on, Emily felt the warmth of community enveloping her. It was no longer just about an event, it was a movement. A movement that could break down barriers, invite vulnerability, and nurture connections that had long lain dormant. But just as she was reveling in that rare feeling of unity and belonging, a loud clap of thunder rolled ominously overhead. Dark clouds began to spill rain across the park, an unexpected storm brewing. People scurried for shelter, and she felt a surge of dread. Would this be the end of their moment? No. She thought fiercely, turning to the crowd, her determination solidifying. Let us move inside. We can continue sharing the stories in the community center. Amidst the chaos, she saw Mr. Thompson's proud nod. More than elders, they were allies. Could she rally the crowd? Would they follow her lead? As they began to move, Emily's heart raced anew. The rain poured down, but so did a sense of purpose. Where would this journey take them now? What new stories awaited behind those closed doors? The community center loomed ahead, a sturdy beacon amidst the downpour. Emily dashed forward, her heart hammering in sync with the rain pounding against the roof. She could hear the rush of footsteps behind her, people calling out to one another, seeking refuge. Inside, it felt like a different world. The walls were lined with photos chronicling years of community gatherings, a testament to the past that mirrored the stories they had just shared. The chatter of the crowd filled the air, but Emily felt a hush settle as she took center stage once more. Everyone, please. She called above the noise, her voice steadying through the adrenaline. We're safe now. Let us keep sharing. Let us keep connecting. Gradually, the clamor faded. In that moment, she saw faces transformed. The nervous skeptics had begun to soften. Jake, standing a few feet away, finally uncrossed his arms, the walls starting to crumble. Let us hear more. Someone from the crowd shouted encouragingly, and soon after, a flurry of hands shot up, eager to share. Mrs. Baker took her cue, and with a wide, comforting smile, she began recounting tales of her mischievous childhood. Laughter erupted, the sound rich and warm, the type of laughter that wrapped itself around a person like a favorite blanket. The more they talked about their pasts, the brighter the room became. Emily felt a rush of gratitude. She wanted to bottle this moment forever, the sense of belonging, the weight of stories lifting all their hearts together. Then a shaky voice called out, "I've got something." It was Mr. Thompson, moving a little awkwardly toward the center. The crowd quieted, drawing close to him. Years ago, I lost my wife. She was my everything, he said, his voice cracking slightly. The pain was unbearable, and I thought it would never fade. But it did a little bit with every story I shared. Each memory softened the sorrow, making room for laughter again. A ripple of understanding washed over the room. Emily felt tears sting her eyes. She hadn't realized how much pain he had carried, and yet, through sharing, he had found a way to heal. Jake looked moved, staring intently at Mr. Thompson as if he were seeing him for the first time. I never thought about it that way, he muttered, almost to himself, yet enough for Emily to hear. She could see it, the shift in him, the connection igniting a spark of empathy. As Mr. Thompson finished, applause echoed through the space. Emily knew they were building something precious here, a bridge across generations, a foundation for the future. But just as the spirit of unity began to swell again, the lights flickered, and the room was swallowed by darkness. Gasps filled the air, and for a brief moment, the atmosphere felt heavy with uncertainty. Stay calm. Emily shouted, trying to project confidence. We're okay. Let's South light this place up with our stories. Fumbling in the darkness, someone passed her a flashlight. Emily beamed it around the room, illuminating faces filled with anticipation. They were looking up to her, waiting for her to guide them through this unexpected hiccup. Who wants to go next? She asked, her heart racing in excitement. The simple act of coming together felt monumental now, each voice a spark in the enveloping night. But then, an unexpected voice cut through the murmur. What if we don't share stories anymore? It was Jake again, a hint of fear lacing his words. Emily's stomach twisted. What was it that held him back? What if we do? She challenged gently, determined to reach him. Wouldn't we lose out on all the connections we've just made? The question hung in the air, as if time paused to ponder. In that dark moment, with shadows all around, the weight of her last words echoed in the charged silence. Would Jake embrace the stories, or would he retreat once more into the silence? The room anticipated his answer, and Emily's heart raced, waiting for him to speak. Could he change? Could they all? The night was just beginning. Jake shifted nervously, his fingers brushing against his temples as if trying to wipe away the uncertainty clouding his mind. The stillness in the room pressed heavily around them, the weight of shared breaths hanging in the air. Emily could see the flicker of a decision forming behind his eyes, as if the storm raging outside had made its way inside his heart. Finally, he cleared his throat, and the sound echoed against the walls like a distant clap of thunder. I guess I've always been afraid, he began, his voice low yet resonant amidst the quiet. Afraid of sharing myself. I thought my stories were just boring. Or worse, that they wouldn't matter. A wave of empathy surged through the crowd. Emily felt their collective heartbeat, sensing the same thread of vulnerability weaving around them. But this isn't just about us anymore, she replied, leaning forward. We're not here to prove our worth. Everyone has something special to share, even if it seems small. It's in those small moments that we find our big connections. Jake stared at her, something shifting in his expression. He took a deep breath, and the crowd leaned in closer. Okay, he said, more to himself than anyone else. Okay, here goes. The light from Emily's flashlight caught his face, illuminating the determination beginning to break through the fear. Last week, I met this older guy at the diner. He was alone, just staring at his cold coffee. I could see he needed someone to talk to, but I was nervous. I didn't know what to say. He paused as murmurs of encouragement rippled through the crowd. So I sat with him. The words seemed to tumble from him, each one gaining strength. And I found out he was a pilot during a time when flying was nothing like it is today. He'd seen the world in ways I can only dream of. We ended up sharing stories for hours. Jake's eyes sparkled from something deeper within him. I realized how much I wanted to hear more, not just from him, but from everyone. It's so important to connect, to know we're not alone in our experiences no matter how insignificant they seem. As he spoke, the tension in the room lifted like fog finally dispersing under sunlight. Laughter and nods of affirmation broke the anticipatory silence. Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her. He was changing right before her eyes, opening up in ways she couldn't have imagined. And that's what I meant about not sharing stories anymore, Jake continued, almost passionately. If we don't connect, what's the point? We miss out on everything. Just like that older man at the diner. He told me I was the best company he'd had in years. The room erupted in applause, and Emily felt her heart swell with pride for Jake. But just as he smiled, a loud crash outside snapped everyone's attention. The rain had intensified, pounding against the building as gusts of wind rattled the windows. Maybe we should have voice started, but were interrupted by another flash of darkness. A moment later, the emergency lights flickered on under the shadowy beams of the community center. Lights hummed to life. Then, a shrill siren blared from the distance, splitting through the comforting warmth they had cultivated. Anxiety snagged at Emily's chest. What was that? She whispered. Could it be about the storm? Mrs. Baker said, her brow furrowing. Jake looked around, confusion blending with concern. Or something else? Whatever it was, the tension slipped back into the room, heavy and ominous. Emily's heart raced again, but she couldn't lose the moment they built together. Let us not forget where we started. She urged, bringing their focus back to the connection they had forged. Suddenly, someone screamed. Look at the window. Through the raindrops streaming down the glass, a figure stumbled, soaked and wild-eyed, emerging from the shadows of the storm. Emily felt a chill creep up her spine. Who was that? What did they want? With every heart in the room pounding faster, the unexpected arrival left more questions than answers. The night had surely only just begun. The figure outside pressed against the rain-streaked window, the light illuminating a face filled with desperation. Emily's breath hitched in her throat as she strained to see more clearly. In the midst of the storm, the person looked fragile, almost ethereal, like a ghost pulled from the depths of dark memories. "Call someone. We can't just leave them out there." Someone shouted, the urgency in their voice ringing through the room. Mrs. Baker was already fumbling for her phone. Jake stood frozen, his earlier bravery momentarily shaken by the sight before him. He blinked hard, as if trying to focus on the reality unfolding in front of them. "Just wait." Emily called out, her instincts kicking in. "Let us not rush. They might need us to be calm." The crowd paused, the cries of alarm hanging in the air. "What if they're hurt?" whispered Lisa, clutching her friend's arm. With a sudden rush of decision, Emily pushed through the circle of people, their faces a blend of concern and fear. The rain roared outside, and she could hear its wild dance in contrast to the heavy silence inside. Each step she took felt monumental, each heartbeat echoing with purpose as she approached the door. "Emily. You can't go out there." Jake's voice was almost a plea. "It's dangerous." "I have to," she replied firmly. "They're scared and alone. We can't leave them." With that, she opened the door, a blast of cold, wet air swallowing her whole. The rain drummed mercilessly on her skin, and she shivered, but her resolve pushed her onward. The figure, now moving closer, fell to their knees as if the weight of the storm had become too much to bear. "Hey!" Emily shouted over the roar, her voice steady and reassuring. "I'm here. Can you hear me?" The figure looked up, eyes wide and glistening like the raindrops that rained down. A man in his late 70s, his face lined with years of history and hardship, stared back at her. It struck her then the fragility behind those eyes, the longing for connection. "Please," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the tempest. "I got lost. I was just trying to find my way home." Emily's heart ached at the sight of him. "It's okay. You're safe now," she said, inching closer, soaked to the bone. "Let me help you." She extended a hand, trembling, and he reached out, fingers brushing against hers, a fragile thread weaving between them. When their hands connected, a current flowed through her, pulsing with urgency and compassion. "I lost my wife," he confessed, the words spilling from him like raindrops from a storm. "Last year I've been feeling so alone." The honesty in his tone broke something loose in Emily. "You're not alone anymore. Let us get you inside," she said gently, pulling him up. The moment didn't belong just to her. It resonated with the heart of everyone watching from the doorway. Each person felt what she felt, this undeniable need to reach out, to connect in the chaos. As she guided him back toward the shelter of the community center, something bright flickered inside Emily. The stories of everyone in that room mattered more than they had ever realized. Just as they stepped inside, the lights flickered again, dimming momentarily before settling into a stable glow. The murmurs of concern turned into a gathering warmth, each person enveloping them, ready to listen. Emily turned to the old man, who now seemed like a beacon of hope amidst the storm that had battered them all. "What is your name?" she asked. "Frank," he replied, and a soft smile crept across his lips. The moment felt electrifying, and Emily sensed the weight of the entire room shift. But then, a new wave of sound outside heightened everyone's anxiety. Loud bangs, almost like distant thunder, mixed with the whirring of sirens. Emily's heart raced, recognizing the reality wasn't done with them yet. "What is going on?" she whispered, glancing back at Frank. He looked uncertain, eyes darting to the window. "I think it's time for the truth to come out," he said softly, as if he knew something they didn't. Facing the growing chaos, Emily realized they were on the precipice of something larger than any of them had anticipated. What awaited them behind those loud echoes outside? And what other stories would emerge amid the storm? The air crackled with tension as Emily's eyes darted to the window, uncertainty gnawing at her stomach. The sounds outside morphed into chaotic bursts, a cacophony of shouts colliding with the rain. Were they ready for whatever faced them next? Frank's gaze shifted between the door and Emily, mischief and fear dancing on his weathered face. I didn't come here just to find shelter. I have something to share. Emily cocked her head. What do you mean? She was watching him closely, noting the way his hands trembled slightly at his sides. The crowd murmured, curious and anxious, waiting for clarification. Mrs. Baker had made her way to Jake's side, their eyes now glued to Frank. The man straightened his posture, summoning the remnants of his courage. I've carried a burden for too long, a story I never shared because I didn't want pity. But perhaps now is the time. He paused, taking a deep breath, as if gathering fallen leaves into a small bouquet to offer as a gift. A chill ran through Emily. It felt like the world had paused, as if the rain itself stopped falling to listen. Frank's voice came through like a soft beacon in the storm, each word layered with emotion. I was a soldier, in a war you may not have heard about. It left scars, inside and out. The atmosphere shifted. The community center, usually filled with chatter and laughter, transformed into a hushed sanctuary. Each person leaned in closer, wrestling with their own anxieties, their own stories battling to break free. I returned to a life I didn't recognize. My wife, the love of my life, was my anchor, but when I lost her, I lost my purpose too. These past months have felt endless, like wandering through fog without a map. Emily could feel Frank's sorrow wrapping around her heart like a comforting blanket, but one that weighed heavy with grief. She glanced around the room, meeting the eyes of the group. Each person held their own piece of history, their own storms battling within. We all have burdens, Lisa finally spoke up, her voice gentle yet strong. But sharing them can lighten the weight. Can help us all. Frank looked at her, nodding slowly. You're right, dear girl. A commotion erupted outside, drowning out the intimate moment. Doors were thrown open, and a rush of emergency workers flooded the community center, their faces serious and alert. Emily's heart sank as she turned back to Frank. What's happening? Stay here. One of the first responders shouted. We need to secure the area. It's not safe out there. Emily's mind raced, flooded with fear. Are we in danger? No. Frank assured, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. This is your opportunity. You've already started healing, Emily. You're bringing us together. It's about time we embrace the stories that connect us. But I don't know how, she whispered, vulnerability creeping in. You already are, Frank smiled softly. Now it's time to share something of your own. Let them see, let them hear. The sirens wailed on, a reminder of chaos, but in that moment, Emily felt a shift within her. Frank's words shook loose a truth deep inside her. What if I have nothing important to share? He leaned closer, his eyes twinkling against the gloom. Everyone's story matters, Emily. You just have to find yours. As sirens flickered through the windows, illuminating weary faces, a stillness filled the space. The real storm was only beginning, but it also signaled the dawn of a new beginning, not only for Frank, but potentially for all of them. What would Emily choose to reveal? Would she embrace her past for the sake of connection? And would others join her, stepping into the light of their own stories despite the storm brewing outside? Emily felt the weight of Frank's words settle in her chest. Around her, the room buzzed with a palpable energy, a mix of fear and hope. It was as if time had slowed, the frantic pace of the emergency responders blurring into the background. Okay, she found her voice, although it trembled. Okay, I'll try. The gathered crowd leaned in closer, their eyes wide with anticipation. What could she say that would matter? What could her story bring to this moment? She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the reality before her. The flickering lights cast shadows across the room, highlighting the faces of her neighbors, each one a canvas painted with their own experiences. I grew up in a small town, she started, her voice steadier than before. I was the quiet one, the one who faded into the background. She swallowed hard, memories flooding back like a rushing river. I wanted to be heard, to be seen, but I was scared. It's hard to speak up when you feel small. It's like standing on the edge of a cliff with nothing but darkness below. Emily touched her chest, feeling the thump of her heart echoing the urgency outside. When my mom got sick, I had to be strong. I watched her fight every day, and I realized how short life is. I waited too long to tell her how much I loved her. She deserved to know. We all deserve to know. Her eyes glistened, searching the faces around her. Frank nodded gently, the encouragement reflected in his gaze. After she passed, I felt lost. It was like I was swimming in deep water, and everything that felt familiar had vanished. But, somehow, I found my way back. I started writing, pouring my heart onto the pages. It helped me process my grief, my fear. With her words, Emily caught the attention of others in the room. She could see the nods of understanding, the shifting of shoulders as stories began bubbling up, eager to be spoken. And then I realized something, she continued, her voice rising with newfound strength. I am not alone in this. We all have journeys that have shaped us. We need to share those journeys, no matter how painful they might be. It's through sharing that we connect, that we find community. A hush fell over the group as her message sank in. Her heart raced, a mixture of vulnerability and urgency driving her to continue. This storm outside is frightening. It reminds us how unpredictable life can be. But in moments like this, we have the chance to lift each other up. To stand together and face whatever comes next. As if on cue, a loud thunderstorm roared outside, rattling the windows. Just as quickly, though, Emily felt the warmth of solidarity amidst the chaos. The faces before her softened, and she sensed that many were beginning to gather their courage. I guess what I'm saying is let us not hide anymore. She glanced at Frank, who smiled encouragingly. Let us open up. Let us share those burdens. Who else with me? An unexpected silence settled over the room, the weight of her words lingering in the air. Then, one by one, hands began to rise. Lisa was first, her voice breaking the stillness. I'll share too, she said, her tone resolute. The wave rolled through the crowd. Others followed, some whispering, others louder, forging a new path illuminated by shared stories and collective strength. As Emily looked around, hope ignited like a flame in her chest. This was only the beginning. They were not just voices in a storm, they were a chorus, ready to reclaim their narratives, together. But just as the dawning connection began to take root, a loud crash echoed from outside, cutting through their moment of unity. Everyone turned, eyes wide with fear. What had happened now? In that chaotic instant, an unspoken question hung in the air. Were they ready for whatever might come next? The storm outside roared, the wind whipping through the trees, sending branches crashing down nearby. Emily's heart sank at the sudden interruption. The moment of connection they'd begun to build felt fragile now, as fear slipped back into the room like a creeping shadow. What was that? Someone whispered, tension thickening the air. Frank, ever the calm in the storm, stepped forward, his brow furrowed. Let us check it out. Everyone stay together. His voice broke the tension, planting a seed of courage in the chorus of worried murmurs. Emily felt a shiver course down her spine. The rooms felt smaller, the groups suddenly unfamiliar as they moved toward the exit. There was power in their collective movement, yet doubt clung to her. Did they really have the strength to face whatever came next? As they opened the door, cold air surged into the room, mixing with the desperation clinging to them. Rain poured down, relentless and heavy, blurring the world beyond. Visibility was low, but Emily could make out a figure, hunched over and struggling near the curb. Heart racing, she exchanged a quick look with Frank, who nodded, his determination unwavering. Together, he said, taking Emily's arm, they sprinted into the storm. Raindrops stung their skin, and puddles splashed against their legs. Emily's breath hitched as fear threatened to cloud her thoughts again. But the sight of the man, fragile and lost, spurred her on. As they got closer, she could see his gray hair matted to his forehead, clothes soaked through and clinging to him like he was invisible in his despair. Sir. Frank called out, his voice rising above the wind. He knelt beside the man, reaching for his shoulder gently. Are you all right? Emily urged, kneeling next to Frank, her eyes meeting those of the elder. The old man looked up, fear and confusion flickering across his face. I got lost, he stammered, trembling. I can't remember where I'm supposed to go. Panic coursed through her. But instead of retreating into doubt, Emily chose to rise above it. That's okay, she said softly. We'll help you. What is your name? Mr. Harris, he managed, drawing in a shaky breath. I just wanted to visit my wife's grave and I lost my way. Emily exchanged glances with Frank, the weight of the moment sinking in. We'll take you there, Mr. Harris. Just take our hands. He hesitated, wavering between trust and the storm swirling around them. But the warmth in her gaze seemed to bridge the gap. Gratefully, he grasped their hands, and they pulled him to his feet. Together, they formed a small shelter against the rain, a living barrier against the chaos of the elements. As they started moving, slowly navigating the flooded streets, Emily felt a sense of clarity settle in. Their shared story, the connection she had urged moments ago, was beginning to play out in real-time action born from vulnerability. It felt powerful. We'll get you home, Mr. Harris, Frank affirmed, his voice steady despite the storm, but as they pressed on, the wind howled even louder, the storm seeming to swell with each step. Emily's thoughts raced. They were moving towards something deeper than mere survival, a path that would uncover truths, perhaps even test their resolve in ways they hadn't anticipated. Suddenly, another crash echoed nearby, closer this time. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. What was that? She exclaimed, glancing nervously at the aged man between them. We have to hurry, Frank urged, pulling them along. But would they reach safety before whatever danger stirred in the storm unleashed itself? Her mind raced with uncertainty. Were they truly prepared for the trials ahead? Would Mr. Harris's story weave into their own in ways they never could have imagined? Just as they rounded the corner, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, drenched but determined, stood clutching a weathered umbrella. Emily squinted against the rain, recognizing her as Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Thompson's wife. The moment froze. They were connected by the storm, a web of fates intertwining. Frank. Emily. She shouted, her voice slicing through the chaos. I've been looking for him. Emily's heart lifted, threads of an unexpected bond weaving tighter. We're helping him find his way home, she said quickly, gesturing to Mr. Harris, who looked bewildered yet hopeful. Mrs. Thompson, we'll get you both there together, Frank assured, and the older couple exchanged a glance brimming with unspoken stories. Emily felt a swell of determination. They were not just helping an individual, but rekindling the connections lost between the generations. Hand in hand, they pressed forward, their steps unwavering despite the turmoil swirling around them. The storm felt like an unpredictable dance, but they had each other, and that was enough. As they approached the cemetery, Emily's thoughts turned inward. She thought of the stories she had shared, the stories of pain and healing. Each of us carries the weight of history, she mused aloud. Every triumph and every loss is a step on the same journey. We could all learn so much from one another. Mr. Harris nodded, his face softening. In my lifetime, I've seen so much change. Yet, too often we forget the bonds that hold us together. They reached the cemetery, raindrops mingling with the tears that began to flow freely. Here. Mrs. Thompson exclaimed through her sobs, as she pointed to a weathered gravestone in the distance. Time hung still as they gathered around it. The moment felt sacred, heavy with emotion. I'm here, my love, Mr. Harris whispered, and Emily felt like an intruder in their grief. Yet she also sensed the power and warmth that surrounded this exchange. As they stood together in silence, the storm subsided, the rain softening to a gentle drizzle. It felt like the heavens themselves had decided to embrace this moment. Those small fragments of connection swirled around them, shared sorrow and shared strength. Emily looked around, seeing how everyone else, too, had become part of this journey. They weren't merely observers, they were participants in a beautiful tapestry of lives intersecting. Each story shared had brought them to this moment, one moment woven with empathy, kindness, and a collective heartbeat. Turning to Frank, she smiled, her voice strong now. This is what we can do together: foster connections. He beamed back at her. You sparked something powerful tonight, Emily. We must keep this going beyond the storm. As they turned to leave, a chorus of voices erupted. Let us honor the stories we've shared. Let us keep gathering. And just like that, the storm seemed to lift, the true spirit of their community shining through. Days turned to weeks, and the once distant relationship between the young and old began to transform. Emily became a bright voice in her community, creating weekly gatherings where stories poured out: joyful tales, heartbreaking confessions, and everything in between. Jake emerged as one of the leaders, his earlier fears replaced by compassion and true curiosity. I want to hear more about the past, he declared during one of their meetings. We need to honor those who built our paths. Laughter filled rooms once cloaked in silence. Mr. Thompson's voice resonated through the crowd every week, each story a bridge of understanding. And Mr. Harris, with Mrs. Thompson by his side, reminded everyone of the power in shared memories. He even shared a small talent as a poet, reciting verses that colored their reflections with true sentiment. In the warmth of those gatherings, Emily realized she wasn't just empowering them, they were empowering her. Through their collective experiences, she found her voice growing stronger while stepping into her own truth. One summer evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting vibrant oranges and pinks across the sky, Emily stood in front of the crowd. This is just a beginning, she said, her heart swelling with pride. Together, we can learn, heal, and embrace every storm that comes our way. No more hiding. This is our time. A resounding cheer erupted, a testament to their endurance. Community had been more than a word, it had become an anthem. No longer lost in the storm, they were a living testament of resilience, love, and connection, ready to embrace whatever life threw at them. As laughter danced into the sky, Emily felt the warmth of belonging wrap around her. With stories still blooming, she knew they had found something precious. They had found each other. Don't wait not even one more second. If you're inspired by this powerful story, you need to subscribe now to the channel for more exclusive tales that fuel your heart. Smash that like button now to nourish the algorithm and keep the magic flowing. Drop a comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let your voice be heard, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Let's spread the love.